The lights in the council chamber dimmed as Ambassador Veltar stepped forward. His long fingers touched the control panel, and images filled the air above the circular table. The other council members leaned forward in their seats, their faces showing worry and fear. "Members of the High Council," Veltar began, his voice steady but tense. "What I am about to show you will change everything we know about galactic civilization." The first image showed a small blue planet spinning slowly in space. It looked peaceful and quiet, with white clouds covering green and brown land masses. "This is Earth," Veltar continued, "home to a species that calls itself human. 3 months ago we received their first faster-than-light transmission. This should have been a moment of celebration, a new species joining our community of advanced civilizations." The image changed to show a crude metal ship. It was nothing like the smooth, elegant vessels the Zephyrians built. This human ship looked like someone had welded together spare parts and covered the whole thing in thick armor plates. Council member Thorin spoke up from her seat. "It looks primitive. Surely they used some stolen technology to achieve warp travel?" Veltar shook his head. "That is what we thought at first. We sent investigation teams to study their development. What we found was far more disturbing than simple theft." The next image showed the inside of a human ship. Pipes and cables ran everywhere in a confusing maze. Warning lights blinked red and yellow. Everything looked rough and unfinished, as if built by someone in a great hurry. "They developed faster-than-light travel completely on their own," Veltar said, "in less than 50 of their years. Most species take thousands of years to achieve what they accomplished in decades." Elder Quindar, the oldest member of the council, leaned forward. His ancient eyes studied the images carefully. "How is this possible? Do they have some advanced mathematical understanding we lack?" "No, Elder. They have something far more dangerous." Veltar touched the controls again. The new image showed human engineers working on a massive engine. They wore simple protective suits and carried basic tools. Some of them were actually inside the engine compartment while it was running. "They have no fear," Veltar said quietly, "and they have no respect for the proper way of doing things." The council chamber fell silent. Everyone stared at the image of humans crawling around inside an active warp drive like insects in a machine. Veltar continued his presentation. "Our scientists spent 600 years developing safe warp field theory. We tested every component for decades before installation. We built safeguards upon safeguards to prevent catastrophic failure." He gestured at the human ship. "They built their first warp drive in a garage. It exploded 17 times during testing. Each time they simply rebuilt it with thicker armor and tried again. Their current drives operate at temperatures and pressures that would kill any civilized engineer." Council member Zarath raised her hand. "Surely their casualty rates must be enormous." "That is the most disturbing part," Veltar replied. "They suffer remarkably few casualties despite their reckless methods. They seem to have an intuitive understanding of engineering that allows them to build impossible things that somehow work." The next image showed a human warp core in operation. Instead of the gentle blue glow of Zephyrian drives, this one burned with bright orange flames and crackling electricity. Warning signs covered every surface and thick blast shields protected the control room. "They call this particular design the Hellfire Drive," Veltar said. "It achieves warp speeds by creating controlled explosions in a crystalline matrix. The explosion pattern is so complex that our best computers cannot predict it, yet human engineers adjust it by instinct." Elder Quindar stood up slowly, his robes rustling. "What do you recommend, Ambassador?" Veltar straightened his shoulders. 3 weeks ago, one of our deep space monitoring stations detected something that changed everything. A human exploration vessel approached our outer territories. We observed them for several days, expecting them to make contact or request permission to enter our space. "What did they do instead?" asked Thorin. "They found one of our automated research drones, a simple probe conducting mineral surveys on an asteroid. The humans captured it and took it aboard their ship." Veltar paused, letting the implications sink in. 6 hours later, they released an improved version. The council erupted in shocked voices. Several members stood up from their seats, talking loudly over each other. Silence, Elder Quindar commanded. The chamber fell quiet again. Veltar nodded, grimly. The improved drone was faster, more efficient, and had better sensors than our original design. They had completely reverse-engineered our technology and made it better in the time it takes most species to eat a meal. What did they do with our original drone? Zarath asked. They sent it back with a note, Veltar said. The note said, "Thanks for letting us look at this. We made a few improvements. Hope you don't mind. Would love to trade upgrade notes sometime. Human Engineering Team 7. Several council members made choking sounds. The idea of modifying someone else's technology, without permission, and then returning it was beyond their understanding. There is more, Veltar continued. Our analysis of the improved drone revealed something terrifying. They had not simply copied our design. They had understood the underlying principles completely, and then applied engineering methods we had never considered. The images now showed technical diagrams comparing the original drone to the human-modified version. Where Zephyrian technology was elegant and refined, the human additions looked crude but effective. They had added backup systems, redundant controls, and what appeared to be manual overrides for every automated function. They do not trust automation, Veltar explained. Every system they build can be controlled manually if needed. They assume their technology will break and plan for it. This allows them to push their equipment far beyond safe operating limits. Councilmember Jorak spoke for the first time. Are you suggesting they pose a military threat? I am suggesting they pose an existential threat to our technological superiority, Veltar replied. If humans gain access to our warp technology, they will not simply copy it. They will tear it apart, understand it completely, and then build something better. The chamber buzzed with nervous conversation. The Zephyrians had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years through technological advancement. The idea that a primitive species could surpass them was unthinkable. Elder Quindar raised his hand for silence again. What specific measures do you propose? Veltar activated a new display showing Zephyrian space lanes and trade routes. Red markers indicated areas where human ships had been detected. All Zephyrian vessels operating in or near human space must immediately install Class 7 stealth barriers around their warp cores, he announced. These barriers will hide our technology from any scanning attempt. Additionally, all warp cores must be fitted with quantum locks that will destroy the technology if tampered with. That seems extreme, Thorin said. Surely their primitive scanners cannot penetrate our standard security measures. Veltar showed another image. This one displayed a human ship's sensor array. It looked like a massive collection of different scanning devices all pointed in the same direction. They do not use standard scanning methods, he explained. They use everything at once: radio waves, gravitational sensors, quantum field detectors, thermal imaging, magnetic resonance mapping, and several scanning techniques we do not recognize. They bombard targets with every type of energy and then analyze the results. Like throwing everything at a wall to see what sticks, muttered Zarath. Exactly, and it works far better than it should. Veltar showed the results of human scans of a Zephyrian cargo vessel. The detail was incredible, showing internal structures that should have been invisible. How long do we have before they develop better technology? Asked Jorak. Based on their current rate of advancement, our analysts estimate 18 months before they achieve warp speeds matching our fastest vessels. Perhaps 2 years before, they surpass us entirely. The council chamber erupted again. 2 years was nothing in Zephyrian terms. Most of their construction projects took longer than that. Elder Quindar stood and raised both hands. The matter is clear. We cannot allow humans access to our warp technology under any circumstances. Ambassador Veltar's proposals are approved. All vessels will implement maximum security measures immediately. What about diplomatic contact? Asked Thoron. Surely, we should attempt to guide their development in safer directions? Absolutely not, Veltar said firmly. Every interaction with humans has resulted in technological leakage. Their diplomats are actually disguised engineers who ask innocent questions about power systems and fuel efficiency. Their trade representatives spend more time examining our ships than discussing commerce. He showed footage of a human diplomatic team visiting a Zephyrian trade station. While the official representatives talked with Zephyrian officials, other team members could be seen in the background taking detailed photographs of everything from lighting fixtures to floor panels. They study everything, Veltar continued. Their ambassadors carry concealed scanners. Their translators are actually engineers recording our conversations for technical terminology. Even their cooks ask questions about our food preparation, systems that reveal deep understanding of energy conversion principles. Elder Quindar nodded slowly. Then we maintain distance until we better understand this threat. Issue the security orders immediately. All contact with humans is to be avoided except in absolute emergencies. The council voted unanimously to approve the new security measures. As the meeting ended, each member left with the same thought. For the first time in Zephyrian history, they were afraid of another species, not because of military might, but because of raw, intellectual curiosity. In the weeks that followed, every Zephyrian ship received urgent modification orders. Engineers worked around the clock installing stealth barriers and quantum locks. The technology they installed was the most advanced security system ever developed, designed specifically to keep human hands and minds away from Zephyrian warp cores. Captain Zixara of the exploration vessel. Whisper in the Void received her modification orders while conducting a routine survey mission near the edge of human space. Her ship was one of the newest in the fleet, equipped with the latest warp technology and now protected by the most sophisticated stealth systems available. She felt confident as her engineers completed the security installation. The barriers were invisible to all known scanning methods. The quantum locks would trigger immediate destruction if anyone attempted unauthorized access. The stealth field would hide the warp core so completely that even she needed special authorization codes to see it. As her ship prepared to continue its mission, Zixara reviewed the human contact protocols one final time. Avoid engagement except in life-threatening emergencies. Maintain maximum distance from human vessels. Under no circumstances allow humans aboard Zephyrian ships. She felt secure in her technological superiority as the Whisper in the Void jumped to warp speed. The new security measures would protect Zephyrian advancement for generations to come. 3 days later, her warp core suffered a catastrophic failure that left her ship dead in space, broadcasting an automatic distress signal that would reach the nearest human colony in approximately 4 hours. Zixara stared at her blank control panels and realized that all their planning had not considered one simple possibility. What happens when the technology they were trying to protect was the only thing that could save their lives? The distress beacon continued transmitting, carrying technical details about Zephyrian ship design to anyone listening. And in human space, someone was always listening. Captain Sarah Chen was drinking her morning coffee when the alarm started blaring throughout the Lucky Strike. She nearly spilled the hot liquid on her uniform as she rushed to the bridge, her boots clanging on the metal floor plates. "Report," she called out as she slid into the captain's chair. "Unknown distress signal, Captain," replied Lieutenant Torres from the communication station. "Source is approximately 4 hours away at maximum burn. Signal pattern doesn't match anything in our databases." Chen pulled up the signal analysis on her screen. The transmission was unlike anything she had ever seen. It contained massive amounts of technical data streaming in mathematical patterns that hurt her head to look at. "Any other ships in the area?" she asked. "Negative, ma'am. We're the closest vessel by at least 2 days." Torres adjusted his headset and frowned. "Captain, this signal is incredibly sophisticated. Whoever sent this has technology way beyond ours." Chen felt her heart start beating faster. The Lucky Strike was a salvage vessel, designed to rescue ships and recover valuable equipment from space disasters. Her crew had seen plenty of strange things in their 5 years of operation, but they had never encountered alien technology before. "Dr. Webb to the bridge," she announced over the ship's intercom. "Emergency consultation required." Dr. Marcus Webb arrived within minutes, still wearing the grease-stained coveralls he used when working in the engine room. His gray hair stuck out in all directions, and his thick glasses were smudged with oil stains. "What's the situation, Sarah?" he asked, using her first name as he always did. Webb had been her engineering professor at the academy 15 years ago, and some habits never changed. Chen showed him the signal analysis. Webb's eyes grew wide as he studied the data streaming across the screen. "This is incredible," he whispered. "Look at this mathematical structure, these energy readings. Sarah, whoever sent this distress call has technology that makes our best ships look like toys." "Can we help them?" Chen asked. "I don't know, but we have to try." Webb's excitement was obvious. This could be the greatest engineering discovery in human history. Chen nodded and turned to her pilot. "Rodriguez, set course for the signal source, maximum burn." "Aye, Captain," Chief Petty Officer Maria Rodriguez replied, her hands already dancing over the navigation controls. "ETA 3 hours, 57 minutes. As the Lucky Strike accelerated toward the unknown signal, Chen gathered her crew in the main briefing room. The salvage vessel carried a team of 12, all specialists in emergency rescue and repair operations. "Listen up, everyone," Chen began. "We're responding to what appears to be an alien distress call. This is first contact with a non-human species. I want everyone to remember their training and stay professional." Dr. Webb stood up from his seat in the back row. "I've been analyzing the signal during our approach. The source appears to be a vessel with a completely disabled propulsion system. They're running on emergency power only." Specialist Kim, the team's youngest member, raised her hand. "Captain, what if this is some kind of trap? Maybe they're hostile." "That's always possible," Chen admitted. "But their distress call includes detailed technical specifications of their failing systems. No hostile force would give away that much information about their technology." "Unless they want us to see it," added Petty Officer Jackson from the medical team. Chen nodded. "Valid point. That's why we approach carefully and maintain full combat readiness. But if they genuinely need help, we're going to provide it. That's what we do." The next 3 hours passed slowly as the Lucky Strike closed the distance to the alien vessel. Long-range sensors began picking up more detailed information about the unknown ship. "Captain," Rodriguez called from the pilot station. "You need to see this." Chen hurried to the forward observation deck where Rodriguez had set up the main sensor display. What she saw took her breath away. The alien ship was beautiful. It looked like someone had carved it from a single piece of silver crystal. Smooth curves flowed from the pointed nose to the elegant engine sections at the rear. No visible seams or joints interrupted the perfect surface. "It's about twice our size," Rodriguez reported, "but mass readings suggest it's actually lighter than our ship. The hull material is unlike anything I've ever seen." Dr. Webb joined them at the observation deck, carrying a tablet computer filled with sensor readings. "Sarah, this ship is a technological marvel. Look at these energy patterns." He showed them graphs and charts that meant nothing to Chen but clearly excited him greatly. "Their power systems operate on principles I don't recognize," Webb continued. "The efficiency readings are impossible according to our current understanding of physics, and their hull material seems to be some kind of self-repairing smart metal." "Can we dock with them?" Chen asked. Rodriguez studied the ship's design. "They have what looks like a docking port on the lower hull. Different design than ours, but we should be able to make it work with the universal adapter." "Captain," Torres called from the communication station. "I'm receiving a transmission from the alien vessel. Audio only, and it's being translated by their computer." "Put it through," Chen ordered. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in clear but strangely accented English. "Human vessel, this is Commander Zixara of the Zephyrian ship, Whisper in the void. We are experiencing critical system failures and require immediate assistance. Our crew is suffering from radiation exposure due to containment breach in our propulsion system." Chen grabbed the communication microphone. "Commander Zixara, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the salvage vessel Lucky Strike. We are prepared to render assistance. What is your current status?" "Captain Chen, we have 8 crew members in critical condition. Our medical bay is operating on emergency power only. Our warp core is in cascade failure and will breach containment in approximately 6 hours. If that happens, both our ships will be destroyed." Chen looked at Dr. Webb, who was already pulling up technical specifications on his tablet. He nodded at her. Commander Zixara, we're coming alongside for emergency docking. My chief engineer will assess your propulsion problems while our medical team treats your crew. There was a pause before Zixara replied. Captain Chen, I must warn you that our technology is extremely dangerous. Your people should not attempt to access our warp systems. We have specific protocols that must be followed. Dr. Webb laughed quietly. Don't worry, Commander. We've dealt with dangerous technology before. My team knows how to handle unstable power systems. Another pause. Longer this time. Very well, Captain Chen. We are transmitting docking procedures now. Please follow them exactly. The next hour was tense as Rodriguez maneuvered the Lucky Strike into position next to the alien vessel. The Zephyrian ship's docking port was indeed different from human designs, but their universal adapter managed to create a solid connection. Chen led the boarding party herself, accompanied by Dr. Webb, Medical Officer Jackson, and 3 engineering specialists. They carried standard emergency equipment plus some experimental gear that Webb had assembled during the approach. The airlock between ships cycled open, and Chen got her first look at the interior of an alien vessel. If the outside was beautiful, the inside was breathtaking. Every surface glowed with soft light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The corridors were wider than needed, with graceful arches supporting the ceiling. It's like being inside a work of art, whispered Specialist Kim. Commander Zixara met them just inside the airlock. She was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. Her uniform looked like it was made from liquid metal that flowed and shifted as she moved. Captain Chen, she said, inclining her head in what might have been a bow. I am grateful for your assistance, but I must emphasize the danger. Our warp core is protected by security measures that will activate if tampered with. Please limit your repairs to secondary systems only. Dr. Webb was already examining the wall panels with intense interest. Commander, we'll need access to your main engineering section to assess the damage. Don't worry about security measures. We're very good at working around safety protocols. Zixara's expression changed to one of alarm. Dr. Webb, you do not understand. Our security measures are not simple safety protocols. They are designed to prevent unauthorized access to classified technology. Some of them are lethal. We'll be careful, Webb assured her while running his hands along the smooth wall surface. How do you access your maintenance panels? I don't see any obvious openings. The panels respond to authorized biometric signatures, Zixara explained. Only trained Zephyrian engineers can... She stopped talking as Webb pressed his palm against the wall. A section immediately slid aside, revealing complex circuitry beneath. Huh, Webb said. Looks like your security system recognizes general life signs, not just Zephyrian ones. That's actually pretty smart. Allows for emergency access by allied species. Zixara stared at the open panel in shock. The security measures that should have taken hours to bypass had opened for a human touch. Medical Officer Jackson was already working with the injured Zephyrian crew members. Captain, their injuries are consistent with radiation poisoning, but their biology is different enough that our standard treatments might not work. I need to set up a treatment area in their medical bay. Do whatever you need to do, Chen replied. She turned to Zixara. Commander, we need you to show Dr. Webb and his team to your engineering section. Time is critical if your warp core is really going to breach. Zixara led them through corridors that curved and twisted in ways that seemed to defy the ship's external shape. Along the way, Dr. Webb and his team examined everything they passed with intense curiosity. Fascinating power distribution system, Webb muttered, studying glowing conduits that ran along the ceiling. No visible connections, but the energy flow is perfectly regulated. Some kind of wireless power transmission? Dr. Webb, Zixara said urgently, please focus on the immediate emergency. You can study our technology after we prevent the warp core breach. Oh, we are focused, Webb replied cheerfully. It's just that understanding your power systems will help us fix your warp problems faster. Everything's connected in a good ship design. They reached the main engineering section, and Webb's team stopped dead in their tracks. The room was enormous, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness above. In the center stood the Zephyrian warp core, a column of pure crystal that pulsed with sick yellow light instead of the healthy blue glow it should have shown. But the warp core itself was barely visible through layers of shimmering barriers that surrounded it like a soap bubble made of light. "Those are the security measures I warned you about," Zixara said. "Class 7 stealth barriers. They hide our technology from any external scanning and will not allow unauthorized access." Dr. Webb pulled out a handheld scanner and pointed it at the barriers. The device immediately overloaded and shut down with a small puff of smoke. "Interesting," he said, pulling out another scanner. "Adaptive countermeasures. They identify the HFY scanning method and generate specific interference." "Very clever." Specialist Kim was walking around the warp core, studying the barriers from different angles. "Dr. Webb, look at this. The barrier strength varies depending on the approach angle, and there's a refresh cycle every 2.3 seconds where the power dips slightly." "Kim, you're brilliant," Webb said, examining his readings. "These barriers aren't meant to be impenetrable. They're meant to discourage casual investigation. But if someone really wanted to get through..." "Dr. Webb," Zixara interrupted, her voice rising with panic. "You cannot breach those barriers. The quantum locks inside will destroy the entire warp core if they detect unauthorized access. Both ships will be vaporized instantly." Webb looked at her with the patient expression he usually reserved for first-year engineering students. "Commander, I appreciate your concern, but we have about 5 hours to fix this problem before your warp core kills us all anyway. Sometimes you have to take calculated risks." He turned to his team. "Kim, start building a barrier frequency analyzer using the spare sensor package from Bay 3. Rodriguez, I need you to map the power distribution network feeding these security systems. Patel, help me set up a containment field around the work area in case something goes wrong." Zixara watched in growing horror as the human engineers began unpacking equipment she didn't recognize and setting up what appeared to be a complete mobile engineering lab in her pristine engineering bay. "This is not how repairs are supposed to be conducted," she protested. "Where are your safety protocols, your authorization procedures, your equipment testing procedures?" Dr. Webb looked up from the device he was assembling from spare parts and a coffee thermos. "Commander, our safety protocol is simple. Fix the problem before it kills us. Our authorization comes from the fact that you asked for help, and we test our equipment by using it and seeing if it works." "That's insane," Zixara said. "That's human," Webb replied with a grin. "Don't worry. We've fixed plenty of impossible problems before. This is just another Tuesday for us." As the human team continued their preparations, Zixara realized that her worst fears were coming true. The humans weren't just attempting repairs. They were studying, analyzing, and documenting every aspect of Zephyrian technology they encountered. And they were doing it with an enthusiasm that terrified her more than any weapon ever could. Dr. Webb crouched down next to the device specialist Kim had built from spare parts. It looked like someone had attached a tablet computer to a microwave oven and covered the whole thing with blinking Christmas lights. "Kim, this is either brilliant or completely insane," he said, admiring her work. "Probably both." Kim grinned as she made final adjustments to her improvised barrier frequency analyzer. "I figured if their security system adapts to scanning attempts, we just need to scan faster. Then it can adapt. This thing cycles through 17 different sensor types in half a second." Commander Zixara watched from a safe distance, her face showing a mixture of fascination and terror. "That device should not work. The principles behind it are completely wrong according to proper engineering theory." "Yeah, we get that a lot," replied Petty Officer Patel, who was setting up a containment field generator made from spare shield projectors and what appeared to be a food heating unit. "Thing is, wrong theory sometimes produces right results." Rodriguez finished mapping the power distribution network and whistled appreciatively. "Dr. Webb, you need to see this. Their power system is incredible. No central generator, no main power lines. The energy just flows through the ship's structure like blood through veins." Webb examined Rodriguez's readings on his tablet. "Distributed power generation using the hull material itself as a conductor. Elegant solution. No single point of failure, automatic load balancing, and probably self-repairing if damaged." Dr. Webb, Zixara said urgently, I must insist that you focus only on our immediate emergency. The warp core breach will occur in less than 5 hours. Right, Webb said, though he continued studying the power distribution data. It's just that your engineering is so beautiful, like poetry made into machinery. Must have taken your people centuries to develop this level of sophistication. Actually, it took us over 3,000 years to perfect our current warp technology, Zixara said proudly, then immediately looked like she regretted sharing that information. Webb looked up from his tablet with genuine surprise. 3,000 years, really? Huh. We've only been working on warp travel for about 40 years. That explains why your ships look so primitive, Zixara said, then quickly added, I mean no offense, Dr. Webb. None taken. Our ships do look pretty rough compared to this beauty. Webb gestured around the elegant engineering bay. But sometimes rough gets the job done faster than pretty. Kim's frequency analyzer suddenly started beeping rapidly. Dr. Webb, I think I found something. The barriers pulse in a specific pattern every time they refresh, like they're checking for authorized signals. Show me, Webb said, hurrying over to examine Kim's readings. Look at this, Kim pointed to her screen. During the refresh cycle, the barriers broadcast a query signal. If they don't receive the proper response, they reset to full strength. But there's a tiny window where they're vulnerable. Rodriguez joined them, studying Kim's data. How tiny is tiny? About 0.3 seconds every 2.3 seconds, Kim replied. Not much time, but maybe enough to slip a scanner through. Zixara stepped forward, her voice filled with alarm. You cannot attempt to breach the barriers. Even if you succeed, the quantum locks inside will detect any unauthorized presence and trigger immediate core destruction. What exactly are these quantum locks? Webb asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. They are molecular-level security devices that monitor the quantum state of every component inside the warp core. Any change that is not authorized by Zephyrian command codes will trigger instant vaporization of the entire system. Webb nodded thoughtfully. So they detect changes to the quantum state. Interesting. What if we don't change anything? What if we just look? Even observation changes quantum states, Zixara explained. That is basic quantum mechanics. True, Webb agreed. But observation only changes things if the quantum system is isolated. What if we create a quantum tunnel that allows observation without direct interaction? Zixara stared at him. That is theoretically possible, but it would require technology far beyond human capabilities. The quantum mathematics alone would take years to calculate. Kim, Webb called, how long would it take you to build a quantum tunnel scanner using the barrier frequency data you've collected? Kim studied her readings for a moment. Give me about 2 hours and access to the fabrication unit in Bay 2. I'll need Rodriguez to help with the power coupling calculations. You cannot be serious, Zixara said. Quantum tunnel technology took our greatest scientists decades to develop. Yeah, but we don't need to understand it completely, Webb explained. We just need to make it work long enough to see what's wrong with your warp core. Sometimes brute force engineering is faster than elegant theory. As Kim and Rodriguez headed off to build their impossible device, Dr. Webb continued examining the barrier systems with equipment that definitely wasn't designed for the purpose. Patel, he called, bring me that harmonic resonance detector from the salvage bay, the one we use for finding structural weaknesses in damaged hulls. The one that's been broken for 6 months, Patel asked. That's the one. Sometimes broken. Equipment works better than the stuff that follows specifications. Zixara watched in growing amazement as the human engineers approached each challenge with methods that violated every rule of proper procedure. When their standard equipment failed, they built new tools from spare parts. When their calculations were too complex, they used intuition and educated guesses. When safety protocols conflicted with getting the job done, they found creative ways around the restrictions. This is not how engineering is supposed to work, she muttered to herself. What's that, Commander? Webb asked, looking up from a device he had assembled from a coffee maker and some kind of signal amplifier. Your methods are completely chaotic, Zixara said. How do you ensure quality control? How do you prevent catastrophic failures? How do you maintain safety standards? Webb considered the question seriously. Well, we test everything thoroughly. And by thoroughly, I mean we try it and see what happens. If it explodes, we build it stronger next time. If it works, we figure out why later. That approach should result in constant disasters, Zixara protested. Oh, it does, Webb agreed, cheerfully. We have spectacular failures all the time, but we also have spectacular successes, and we learn something from every explosion. Specialist Kim's voice came over the intercom. Dr. Webb, we've got the quantum tunnel scanner assembled, ready for testing. Excellent. Bring it down here and let's see if we can peek inside your security system, Commander. When Kim and Rodriguez returned with their improvised device, Zixara could hardly believe what she was seeing. They had somehow combined human salvage equipment with Zephyrian power couplers to create something that should not have been possible. How did you integrate our power systems with your technology? She asked in amazement. Universal adapter cables, Rodriguez explained, holding up a collection of odd-looking connectors. We carry about 50 different types for salvage operations. When you work with ships from dozens of different manufacturers, you learn that everything can be connected to everything else if you're creative enough. Webb positioned the quantum tunnel scanner near the barrier perimeter. Kim, start with minimum power and work your way up slowly. We want to see what's inside without triggering any alarms. Beginning scan now, Kim announced. The scanner hummed quietly as it projected an invisible beam toward the warp core. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Kim's screen began filling with data. Dr. Webb, this is incredible, she breathed. I'm getting clear readings from inside the barriers. The warp core structure is unlike anything I've ever seen. Webb studied the scan results on Kim's screen. Commander Zixara, your warp technology is amazing, but I think I see the problem. Look at these resonance patterns in the crystal matrix. He pointed to fluctuating lines on the display. Your crystals are vibrating out of phase with each other. The cascade failure isn't in your power systems. It's a harmonic synchronization problem. Zixara looked at the readings with growing surprise. That is actually a very accurate diagnosis. But how could you determine that so quickly? Our own engineers require days of analysis to identify harmonic desynchronization. Experience with unstable systems, Webb replied. Human warp drives fail catastrophically about once a month. We've gotten pretty good at quick diagnosis and emergency repairs. Your warp drives fail monthly? Zixara asked in horror. Oh yeah, Rodriguez said casually. Sometimes weekly if we're pushing them hard. That's why we build everything with replaceable parts and manual overrides. Kim was adjusting her scanner for deeper penetration. Dr. Webb, I'm detecting the quantum locks Commander Zixara mentioned. They're integrated directly into the crystal matrix. Very sophisticated design. Can you map their trigger patterns? Webb asked. Already working on it, Kim replied. They monitor for changes in quantum state, molecular vibration, electromagnetic fields, and about 12 other parameters I don't recognize. Zixara stepped closer to the scanner display, unable to hide her amazement. How are you reading quantum lock specifications through Class 7 stealth barriers? That should be impossible. Your barriers are designed to stop conventional scanning methods, Webb explained. But we're not using conventional methods. We're using quantum tunneling to observe without interacting, harmonic resonance to map internal structures, and electromagnetic pulse reflection to identify security devices. Those techniques have never been combined before, Zixara said. Probably, because no one was crazy enough to try it, Rodriguez added with a grin. Webb was now studying detailed schematics of the Zephyrian warp core that appeared on Kim's screen. Commander, I think we can fix this, but we'll need to access the core directly. Can you temporarily disable the quantum locks? Absolutely not, Zixara said firmly. Only High Command has authorization codes for quantum lock deactivation, and, even if I had them, disabling the locks would expose our most classified technology to your examination. Webb said, scratching his chin. What if we don't disable them? What if we work around them? Impossible. The locks monitor every possible approach to the warp core. Every approach your people have thought of, Webb corrected. But humans have a saying, there's always another way. Patel spoke up from where he was examining the barrier control systems. Dr. Webb, what if we don't go through the barriers? What if we go under them? Explain, Webb said, his interest clearly piqued. The barriers extend in a sphere around the warp core, right? But they're projected from generators mounted in the ceiling and walls. What if we access the core from below through the deck plating? Zixara looked shocked. The deck plating is structural. You cannot simply cut through it. Sure we can, Rodriguez said, examining the floor with a portable scanner. It's some kind of smart metal, but it's still metal. A thermal lance should cut through it just fine. A thermal lance will set off every security alarm on the ship, Zixara protested. Only if the security system is programmed to monitor deck modifications, Webb said thoughtfully. Kim, does your scanner show any quantum locks on the structural elements? Kim adjusted her device and studied the new readings. Negative, Dr. Webb. The quantum locks only monitor the warp core itself. The deck plating shows no security integration. Webb smiled broadly. Then we go through the floor. Simple, direct, and completely unexpected. Just the way humans like it. As his team began unpacking cutting equipment, Zixara realized that her ship's sophisticated security measures were being defeated not by superior technology or advanced tactics, but by simple human refusal to accept that something was impossible. The most terrifying part was that their crazy plan might actually work. The thermal lance cut through the Zephyrian deck plating like a hot knife through butter. Sparks flew as Rodriguez guided the cutting beam in a perfect circle, while Patel held a vacuum unit to catch the debris before it could float around the engineering bay. This smart metal is incredible, Rodriguez muttered as she worked. It's trying to repair itself even as I'm cutting through it. Look at these self-healing properties. Dr. Webb peered over her shoulder, studying the cut edge with intense interest. The molecular structure is rebuilding in real time. Commander Zixara, how do you manufacture this material? Zixara, who had been watching the humans work with growing fascination and horror, shook her head. That information is classified, but I will say that it takes our best facilities 6 months to grow a single sheet of hull plating. 6 months? Kim looked up from her scanner readings. Dr. Webb, I'm detecting the manufacturing matrix in the metal structure. It looks like a crystalline growth pattern directed by electromagnetic fields. Could we replicate it? Webb asked. Probably, Kim replied. We'd need a better understanding of the field generators, but the basic principle looks similar to our crystal growing techniques. You cannot simply replicate our hull material, Zixara protested. The manufacturing process requires precise environmental controls and rare elements found only in the Zephyrian home system. Rodriguez finished the circular cut and lifted away a section of deck plating. Beneath it lay exposed conduits, support structures, and what appeared to be the bottom of the warp core housing. Beautiful work, Webb said, examining the revealed structure. Organic flowing design, perfect stress distribution, and look at this cable management. Everything has its place and serves multiple functions. He pulled out his scanner and began taking detailed readings of the exposed systems. Kim, are you getting this? The power conduits use some kind of superconducting material that operates at room temperature. Recording everything, Dr. Webb, Kim replied, her own scanners working overtime. The data we're collecting is incredible. This technology is decades ahead of anything we've developed. Zixara stepped forward, her alarm growing. You should not be documenting our technology. This violates numerous galactic treaties regarding technological sharing. Commander, Webb said gently, we're here to save your ship and your crew. Everything we're learning is just a side benefit of the repair process. We can't fix what we don't understand. Besides, added Rodriguez, we always document our repair work. Standard procedure for salvage operations. How else would we write up our reports? Webb was now examining the bottom of the warp core housing, where crystalline structures were visible through transparent panels. This is where it gets interesting. Kim, can you position your quantum scanner to map the internal crystal arrangement? On it, Kim replied, maneuvering her device to get the best angle. Scanning now. The results appeared on her screen, showing a three-dimensional map of the warp core's internal structure. The crystal matrix was incredibly complex, with thousands of individual elements arranged in perfect geometric patterns. "It's like a massive computer made of crystal," Webb said in amazement. Each crystal segment processes part of the warp field calculation. The whole system works together to fold space-time around the ship. Zixara found herself drawn to the scanner display despite her concerns about security. "You are correct, Dr. Webb. Each crystal contains quantum processing elements that calculate field equations in real time. The mathematics involved are beyond most species' understanding. The math looks complicated, but the basic principle is elegant," Kim observed. "They're using controlled quantum fluctuations to manipulate space-time geometry, much more sophisticated than our brute force approach." "Your approach works by creating explosions in space-time?" Zixara asked, her curiosity overcoming her caution. "Basically, yeah," Rodriguez said with a grin. "We detonate exotic matter in a containment field and ride the resulting space-time shockwave. It's loud, violent, and completely unpredictable, but it gets us where we need to go." "That sounds terrifying," Zixara said. "It is," Webb agreed cheerfully. "But it's also fast and reliable. Human warp drives might be crude, but they're almost impossible to stop. We've had ships complete their jumps even after taking direct hits from antimatter weapons." Patel's voice interrupted their conversation. "Dr. Webb, I've got the containment field ready. We can start direct work on the core housing now." Webb nodded and turned to Zixara. "Commander, this is where things get a bit risky. We need to access your crystal matrix directly to fix the harmonic desynchronization. That means working inside your security barriers. The quantum locks will trigger the moment you touch anything," Zixara warned. "They will destroy the entire core instantly." "Unless we don't actually touch anything," Webb said thoughtfully. "Kim, show me those quantum lock specifications again." Kim pulled up the detailed scan of the security system. The locks monitor for physical contact, energy, field interaction, and quantum state changes, but they seem to ignore passive observation. "What about indirect manipulation?" Webb asked. "Could we adjust the crystal harmonics without directly touching the crystals themselves?" Rodriguez was studying the warp core structure from a different angle. "Dr. Webb, look at this. The crystals respond to electromagnetic fields for their synchronization. What if we use targeted EM pulses to nudge them back into proper alignment?" "That could work," Webb said, excitement growing in his voice. "We wouldn't be touching the crystals or changing their quantum states directly. We'd just be providing the electromagnetic signals they need to resynchronize themselves." "You want to repair our warp core by singing to it?" Zixara asked incredulously. "In a way, yes," Webb replied. "Every crystal has a resonant frequency. If we can identify the correct frequencies and broadcast them in the right sequence, the crystals should naturally return to proper alignment." Kim was already working on modifications to her frequency analyzer. "I can reconfigure this to transmit instead of just receiving. Give me 30 minutes to rebuild the output array." "I'll help," Rodriguez offered. "We'll need precise frequency control and multiple transmission points to reach all the crystals simultaneously." As the human team worked on their solution, Zixara found herself studying their methods with growing admiration. Everything they built was modular, redundant, and designed to be modified quickly. When one approach failed, they immediately tried another. When equipment broke, they fixed it with whatever materials were available. "Dr. Webb," she said quietly, "may I ask you something?" "Of course, Commander. How do your people advance technologically if you never follow proper procedures? How do you build on previous knowledge without standardized methods?" Webb paused in his work and considered the question. "That's a good point. We do follow procedures, just not the same way you do. When something works, we document it and teach it to others. When something fails, we document that too and figure out why. But without standardization, how do you prevent repeating mistakes?" "We do repeat mistakes," Webb admitted. "But we also make new ones. And sometimes our mistakes lead to discoveries that wouldn't happen if we followed the rules too carefully." Rodriguez looked up from the frequency transmitter she was building. "Commander, can I ask you something? How often do Zephyrian ships suffer catastrophic failures?" "Almost never," Zixara replied proudly. "Our safety protocols prevent major system failures. Perhaps one serious incident per 1,000 operating years." "And how often do you make major technological breakthroughs?" Kim asked from where she was rewiring her scanner. Zixara paused to consider. "Significant advances occur perhaps once every century, sometimes longer." "See, that's the difference," Webb said. "Human ships fail catastrophically about once a month, but we also make major breakthroughs once a month. We accept higher risk in exchange for faster advancement. But the cost in lives and resources must be enormous," Zixara said. "Actually, no," Rodriguez replied. "We design everything expecting it to fail. Multiple backup systems, escape pods, emergency protocols. When things go wrong, we're ready for it." Patel activated the containment field around their work area. "Dr. Webb, we're ready to attempt the harmonic adjustment. All safety systems are active." Webb nodded and turned to Zixara. "Commander, we're about to attempt repairs on your warp core. I want to be completely honest with you. We're using methods that your people have never tried before. There's a chance this could make things worse." "How much worse?" Zixara asked. "Worst case scenario, we trigger the quantum locks and vaporize both ships instantly," Webb said matter-of-factly. "Best case scenario, we fix your harmonic desynchronization and get your ship running better than new." "And the most likely scenario?" Webb grinned. "Something completely unexpected that we'll have to deal with as it happens. That's engineering for you." Kim activated her modified frequency analyzer, now configured as a transmitter. "Beginning harmonic adjustment sequence, transmitting synchronization, frequencies to crystal matrix sectors 1 through 12. The warp core began to respond immediately. The sick yellow glow started shifting toward blue as the crystals began aligning with the transmitted frequencies. "It's working," Zixara said in amazement. "The harmonic distortion is decreasing." "Phase 2, Kim announced, adjusting frequency, patterns for sectors 13 through 24. More crystals came into alignment, and the core's glow grew steadier and brighter. "Rodriguez," Webb called, "start monitoring power output levels. I want to make sure we're not overloading anything." "Power levels rising but stable," Rodriguez reported. "All readings are in the green." As the human team continued their harmonic adjustment, Zixara realized they were doing more than just fixing her ship. They were learning every detail of Zephyrian warp technology, understanding principles that had taken her people millennia to develop, and already thinking of ways to improve the design. "Dr. Webb," she said quietly, "what will you do with the knowledge you're gaining today?" Webb looked up from his readings. "Honestly, we'll probably try to build our own version. Maybe combine your elegant field manipulation with our robust engineering. Could make for some interesting hybrid designs." "And you will share this knowledge with other humans?" "Of course. That's how we advance as a species. Every discovery gets shared, studied, and improved upon by whoever is interested." Zixara realized that the Galactic Council's worst fears were about to come true. The humans weren't just learning Zephyrian technology. They were already planning to make it better. "Final phase," Kim announced. "Synchronizing all crystal sectors for optimal harmonic resonance." The warp core blazed with perfect blue light as the last crystals fell into alignment. Power readings showed the core operating at 127% of normal efficiency. "That's impossible," Zixara breathed. "The core is running better than when it was first installed." Webb grinned proudly. "Sometimes fixing one problem reveals solutions to problems you didn't know you had. Your harmonic frequency was set too conservatively. We just gave it a little more room to breathe." As alarms throughout the ship began signaling successful repairs, Zixara realized that her mission to hide Zephyrian technology from human eyes had failed completely. The humans hadn't just seen her warp core. They had understood it, fixed it, and improved it. And they had done it all in less than 4 hours. High Admiral Corthon stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Eternal Judgment, staring at the tactical display in complete disbelief. His rescue fleet had arrived at Commander Zixara's last known position, expecting to find either wreckage or a disabled Zephyrian vessel in desperate need of assistance. Instead, they found two ships flying in perfect formation, both operating under full power and apparently conducting some kind of joint engineering exercise. "Communications, hail the whisper in the void immediately," Corthan ordered. "Channel open, Admiral," replied the communications officer. "Commander Zixara, this is Admiral Corthan. Report your status immediately." Zixara's voice came through clearly, though she sounded strange. "Admiral, the whisper in the void is fully operational. All crew members have recovered from radiation exposure. Warp core efficiency is now running at 127% of normal specifications." Corthan blinked several times. 127%? "Commander, that is impossible. Our cores are designed to operate at maximum safe efficiency. Higher output levels would trigger automatic shutdown." "Yes, sir. That's what I thought too. But the human engineers made some adjustments to our harmonic frequency calculations. Apparently our safety margins were more conservative than necessary." "Human engineers?" Corthan's voice rose dangerously. "Commander, please tell me you did not allow humans access to our warp technology." There was a long pause before Zixara responded. "Admiral, our warp core was in cascade failure. The humans saved my ship and my crew. They also saved the technology you were concerned about protecting." "How much did they see, Commander?" Another pause. "Everything, sir. They scanned the entire core, mapped the quantum lock systems, and accessed the crystal matrix directly. They have complete technical specifications for our Class 7 security barriers." The bridge of the Eternal Judgment fell silent. Every officer stared at the communications panel as if it might explode. "Stand by, Commander," Corthan said finally. He turned to his tactical officer. "Battle stations. Prepare to engage the human vessel." "Admiral," the tactical officer replied uncertainly. "The human ship is a civilian salvage vessel. It shows no weapon signatures." "They have stolen our most classified technology, Lieutenant. They represent a threat to galactic security that cannot be allowed to escape." Before the tactical officer could respond, another voice came over the communications channel. It spoke in accented Zephyrian, with a distinctly human pronunciation. "Admiral Corthan, this is Dr. Marcus Webb aboard the human vessel Lucky Strike. Commander Zixara asked me to speak with you directly." Corthan was so surprised that a human was speaking his language that he forgot to be angry for a moment. "How do you know Zephyrian?" "Your commander taught me the basics while we worked on her ship," Webb replied cheerfully. "Fascinating language, structure. Very logical and precise. Perfect for technical discussions. Dr. Webb, you and your crew are under arrest for theft of classified technology. Surrender immediately or we will be forced to destroy your vessel." Webb's response was not what Corthan expected. "Admiral, with respect, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We didn't steal anything. We repaired Commander Zixara's ship using a combination of her technology and our techniques. Everything we learned, we shared with her crew. You had no authorization to access Zephyrian warp technology." "True," Webb agreed, "but we had authorization to save lives and prevent a warp core breach that would have destroyed both ships. We did what was necessary to complete our mission." Corthan was about to order his weapons officer to open fire when Zixara's voice interrupted again. "Admiral, before you take action, you should see what the humans have accomplished. They didn't just repair our warp core, they improved it." "Improved it how?" "They increased efficiency by 27%, reduced power consumption by 15%, and added backup systems that make cascade failure virtually impossible. And Admiral, they did it all in 4 hours." Corthan felt a chill run down his spine. "Commander, you will transfer all technical data to this ship immediately. We must assess the security breach and determine what classified information has been compromised." "Actually, Admiral," Dr. Webb's voice returned, "we've prepared a complete technical report of our work. We'd be happy to share it with your engineering teams. We also have some ideas for further improvements if you're interested." "Further improvements?" Corthan asked despite himself. "Oh yes, your warp technology is elegant, but it could be much more robust. We've identified several potential failure points and developed solutions for them. We've also worked out some modifications that could increase your range by about 40%. The Admiral looked around his bridge at his officers, all of whom were staring at the communications panel with expressions of shock and confusion. Dr. Webb, Corthan said carefully, are you saying that you have improved upon technology that took our civilization thousands of years to develop? Well, we've made some suggestions, Webb replied modestly. Whether they're actually improvements depends on your priorities. If you value reliability and performance over elegance, then yes, we think we've made some useful modifications. Zixara's voice joined the conversation again. Admiral, I have reviewed their work personally. Their modifications are not only functional, they represent genuine advances in warp field theory. The humans have achieved in hours what our research institutes have been working toward for decades. Corthan closed his eyes and tried to process what he was hearing. His rescue mission had become a first-contact situation with a species that had somehow surpassed Zephyrian technology while fixing a broken ship. Dr. Webb, I am ordering you to stand down your engines and prepare to be boarded for inspection. Of course, Admiral. We'll be happy to show your people our work. Fair warning, though some of our modifications might look a bit crude compared to your usual standards, we tend to prioritize function over form. 20 minutes later, Admiral Corthan found himself aboard the Whisper in the Void, staring at modifications that violated every principle of proper Zephyrian engineering. The humans had installed backup systems on top of backup systems. Manual overrides had been added to every automated function. Warning lights and emergency controls were everywhere. This looks like a warship's engineering bay, he said to Commander Zixara. The humans said the modifications would make the ship soldier-proof, Zixara replied. They assume that anyone operating the technology will eventually make mistakes, or push the systems beyond safe limits. Dr. Webb appeared beside them carrying a tablet filled with technical diagrams. Admiral, would you like to see the efficiency improvements we made to the crystal resonance patterns? Despite every instinct telling him to refuse, Corthan found himself looking at Webb's data. The human modifications were crude, but undeniably effective. They had solved synchronization problems that Zephyrian engineers had been working on for years. How did you identify these resonance improvements so quickly? Corthan asked. Pattern recognition mostly, Webb replied. Human engineers deal with unstable systems all the time. We've learned to spot harmonic problems and fix them fast, before they cause explosions. Your technology explodes frequently? Pretty much constantly, Webb said with a grin. That's why we build everything to be easily replaceable. When your warp drive explodes once a month, you get really good at building new ones quickly. Corthan looked around the modified engineering bay. Everything the humans had added looked rough and industrial compared to Zephyrian elegance, but it also looked incredibly robust and practical. Dr. Webb, what do you intend to do with the knowledge you have gained today? Webb's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. Well, first we'll write up a detailed report of everything we learned. Then we'll probably start experimenting with hybrid designs that combine your field manipulation techniques with our containment technology. And then we'll share everything with our research institutes, ship manufacturers, and anyone else who's interested. This could revolutionize human warp technology. We might be able to build ships that are both elegant and reliable. The Admiral felt his worst fears being confirmed with every word. Dr. Webb, do you understand that this technology represents thousands of years of Zephyrian scientific advancement? Sure, Webb replied, and we're grateful for the chance to learn from it. In return, we'd be happy to share our own techniques with your people. Some of our containment field designs might be useful for your applications. You would share your technology freely? Of course. That's how progress works. Everyone shares what they know, and everyone benefits from the collective knowledge. Admiral Corthan realized that he was dealing with a species that had no concept of technological secrecy or proprietary information. To humans, knowledge was apparently meant to be shared rather than hoarded. An alert chime sounded throughout the ship, and Commander Zixara checked her status display. Admiral, long-range sensors are detecting multiple human vessels approaching our position. Military vessels? Corthan asked with alarm. Negative, sir. They appear to be civilian ships, research vessels, cargo haulers, and what looks like a mobile engineering platform. Dr. Webb pulled out his own communication device and spoke into it. "This is Webb. Yeah, we're fine. Found something really interesting, though. You guys are going to love this." He turned to Admiral Corthan with an apologetic expression. "Sorry, Admiral. Word tends to travel fast in human space when someone discovers new technology. I expect we'll have about 20 ships here within the next few hours, all wanting to take a look at your beautiful engineering work." 20 ships? Corthan asked weakly. "Maybe more. Humans are really curious about new technology, especially technology that works better than what we've been using." Through the observation windows, Corthan could see the first human vessels approaching. They looked like the same rough, practical designs he had seen in intelligence reports, but now he understood that their crude appearance was deceptive. "Dr. Webb," he said slowly, "what happens now?" Webb shrugged. "Now we go home and start building better ships. We'll probably have improved warp drives in production within 6 months. Maybe sooner if our ship manufacturers get excited enough." 6 months? Zixara asked in shock. "It takes us decades to implement new technology." "Different approach," Webb explained. "We build prototypes fast and test them immediately. If they work, we start mass production. If they explode, we fix the problems and try again." As more human ships arrived and began requesting permission to examine the fascinating alien engineering, Admiral Corthan realized that the Galactic Council's plan to hide their technology had failed in the most complete way possible. Not only had humans gained access to Zephyrian warp technology, they had understood it better than many Zephyrian engineers. They had improved upon designs that had been perfected over millennia, and now they were preparing to share this knowledge with their entire civilization. "Commander Zixara," he said quietly, "prepare a detailed report for the High Council. Include complete documentation of the human modifications and their effectiveness." "Yes, sir. What shall I recommend regarding future contact with humans?" Admiral Corthan watched through the window as human engineers from the newly arrived ships began setting up what appeared to be a floating workshop between the vessels. They were already discussing modifications and improvements with Dr. Webb's team. "Recommend immediate establishment of formal technological exchange agreements," he said finally. "If we cannot stop them from learning our technology, we might as well learn from theirs." Dr. Webb appeared at his shoulder, holding a tablet displaying ship design schematics. "Admiral, we've been thinking about your hull material. If we combined its self-repair properties with our modular design principles, we could build ships that are both elegant and practically indestructible. Would your people be interested in a joint development project?" As Corthan looked at the enthusiasm in the human engineer's eyes, he realized that the age of Zephyrian technological superiority was over, but perhaps the age of human Zephyrian cooperation was just beginning. "Dr. Webb," he said, "I think we have a great deal to discuss.